Hello and welcome to Comprehension Points video Snark. This video series isn't an audiobook. If you thought that it was, please stick around and learn some reading and listening comprehension skills. I read books, discuss what went wrong and how they can possibly be fixed. I'm continuing my read through of Game of Sunken Places by M.T. Anderson. Not the first video, go check out the others. Links are posted below. Chapter 8. The next morning, the boys plan to set out to explore the grounds a little bit. They have food with them and clearly plan to be out all day. They simply tell Max that they're going to explore, which is something that he highly encourages. He says that it's good for them to do such a thing. However, he warns them that going off the path is against the rules, which, come on, boys, use your brains and get out of there. Ugh. At this point, the narration will not stop switching back and forth between the two boys. I don't even like this when watching a TV series, and it's somehow made that much worse when it's a book. Like, pick one story to tell us, and then if you must tell us about the other, finish one first. As a result of this, I will describe what one boy went through and then tell you what the other did. First, we follow Greg out to Petroglyph Wall. There he follows a canyon until he comes to a large boulder that's blocking the path. The wall is full of, well, it's called Petroglyph Wall. What do you think is all over it? Greg sort of looks around for a while before he finds a large chasm that's full of these weird wire things. He almost touches one, but then thinks better of it before he turns to leave. We then switch over to Brian, who is set for Troll Bridge. When he finally finds the bridge, he gets an immense sense of wrongness. Although he doesn't see the troll, I can only imagine what sort of evil magic is at play here. Brian runs off as fast as he can, worried that he shouldn't have agreed to go off on his own. As he goes, he passes by a clock tower. It was mentioned earlier when Jack had been chasing them, but it was such a throwaway line. It's still a throwaway line now, but this is twice now that it's been mentioned that this clock is drastically off as to what time it is. This has got to be important for later. Slight spoiler from the future, this clock was literally never mentioned again. Brian continues on, certain that somebody is following him. However, after a moment, he realizes that it's only Jack, which I think is more concerning than anything. But like, buddy, why are you sulking around the woods seeming to stalk little boys? I know that this book is set in, like, the 1970s or something, but come on, do better. Then in a massive I told you so moment, Jack lunges for Brian. Survival instincts? What are those? However, we wouldn't have much of a story if these moronic little boys got themselves killed before the end of Act 1 of Book 1, so Brian manages to get away and is forced to run back towards Troll Bridge. As he crosses towards the opposite side, the troll shows up because I think that we all knew that it would. Chapter 9. Brian faces down the troll. Jack explains that it wants to eat him, which, no kidding, you don't say. Then the troll resets a riddle. However, for some unholy reason, this is formatted by paragraph breaks. No, I don't understand this either. Maybe it's the weird PDF that I downloaded. Maybe it's an artistic choice. I don't know. Either way, it's a bizarre choice. Brian isn't exactly impressed with the entire thing. He looks at Jack for advice, who kind of shrugs and goes, "Cliché, right?" Jack continues on and says that he tried to warn Brian to keep him away from danger. I want to blame the boys for not having seen the warning signs, but as I usually say in situations like this, they are literal children. They're 12 years old, 14? This is on every single adult in their lives having failed to protect them. Jack does not get to stand there and claim that he tried to warn Brian away from danger while he sat back and literally let all of this happen to both boys. Like, this is not okay behavior. I don't care if this guy's in a murder cult or if he and Max simply get off on this sort of thing. This isn't acceptable behavior. However, when Brian begins to question all of what Jack is saying, he says the first sensible thing this entire book. It's time for you boys to go back to Boston. Yes! Thank you! Unfortunately, Brian refuses to listen and continues to pester Jack with questions about the game, to which Jack responds by, "I wish I was joking." He responds by singing, "I'm a little teapot." He then promptly fucks off to wherever he goes when he's not plot relevant. Not like I think that he's been really plot relevant anyway, but still. We skip over to Brian leaving the area and jump to him meeting back up with Greg. Greg excitedly says, "I found the petroglyphs. They were little drawings all over this boulder." "Yes, darling, you found petroglyphs at Petroglyph Wall. Groundbreaking." Brian explains what happened to him. Even more later, Brian and Greg sit around and discuss the possible solutions for the riddle the troll gave. This is the riddle, by the way. "Bird of the air, I answer the gust. With a long sword ground, I go where I must." Eventually, one of them remembers that there'd been a taxidermy bird down in the basement, so they start to leave the nursery to go and fetch it. Why do they think that a literal bird is a solution? Ugh. Before they go, Brian begs Greg that they don't split up again. Greg kind of makes fun of his friend, but I think that I would not want to split up anymore after everything that had happened. It's easy for Greg to poke fun at Brian, but he also hadn't been openly told by Jack, "The troll wants to eat you." So Brian also kind of starts to say that both Jack and Max had mentioned that people have died in the area, but for some reason he stumbles over the subject rather than to outright say it. Why Brian can't take Jack's advice and leave is beyond me, but whatever. We do it for the paper than plot, I guess. Before they leave the nursery, Brian looks outside and sees Max spinning in circles on the lawn in the rain. Alrighty then. Chapter 10. The boys go down into the basement where they find the taxidermied bird. However, upon examining it, they determine that it's literally nothing but a stuffed hunting trophy. I seriously don't know what they were expecting. It's a riddle, not some sort of mysterious clue, and for sure they're not going to find it on a taxidermied goose. They start poking around in the basement in the hopes of finding literally anything that might shed some light onto the riddle. We're also subjected to another paragraph break around an advertisement for perfume, so putting the paragraph break around the troll's roll is 100% a style thing, and also a choice. The boys find what the narration describes as a photo album of war photos, yet goes on to describe the mountains behind the house being covered in metal like what they dreamt about. Excuse me, what war did they do that? Did I miss something in U.S. history class? They obviously think that this could be worth looking at further, so they go to take it upstairs. As they start to leave the basement, they pass these little figurines that are covered in mold. I don't know if those figurines are going to be important later, but they kind of stood out to me. However, we're quickly getting to the point where the author is dumping so much info on us all at once that it's quickly getting to the point of literally none of this is going to be important, isn't it? I hate this so much. However, as soon as they get back into the first floor, Max is seemingly lying in wait. He starts yelling at them that they shouldn't have gone down into the basement without permission. I get that it might not exactly be safe down there, but holy guacamole on toast, Batman. This man invited these young boys into his house, and yet where the hell has he been this entire time? Because it sure hasn't been entertaining them. They've been left to their own devices, and he's upset that they're digging through the basement? Since this man is so obsessed with propriety, I'm going to tell him this. Emily Post is quite disappointed in you with your abilities as a host, good sir. Max gets even more worked up when the boys tell him what they've brought up. He starts screaming about finger oils, but annoys Greg when he points out that they found the book under an old fish tank. He's so hell-bent on being right in this situation that all and any logic is simply flying out the window. Even if he wasn't already being set up to be the villain in this story, he's quickly turning into one regardless. Ugh. The boys are quick to dismiss anything Max says, which I think is for the best. Like, yes, children should defer to adults, but that's assuming that the adult in question is being reasonable. As I finished saying, Max is so intent on being right that he's letting his emotions get the better of him. It's honestly kind of embarrassing. Anyway, they go upstairs where they start looking at the photos. Although they say that they think that the photos might be from World War I, the things described are honestly anything but. Some of them are pretty normal, with women in coveralls working on metal, which I'm pretty sure is more of a World War II thing, but whatever. And some of them are so downright bizarre, I don't know why the boys don't immediately call the entire thing fantasy and scoff over it. Mainly the fact that half of the people in the pictures have elven ears, which is not weird in any way. No, I remember the battalions of Mirkwood joining into the Battle of Vermont. Seems legit. After they finish looking through the pictures, they look over to the hourglass. When Brian discovered it, the sand started to flow in reverse to the side that's currently empty, but by their estimate of how much sand has moved, they have about 5 days left to either finish this or lose. However, there's no mention of discussion about what that might mean. Greg then announces that they're in a world of magic, which, I suppose is a logical conclusion to reach. I'm mainly more baffled by how calmly that they're simply accepting all of this. Brian isn't begging to go home. He saw a troll, panic a little, and was like, well, guess trolls exist. They both simply take the fact that they're in some sort of dangerous wheel-of-life game without pausing to think about logic. None of this makes a lick of sense. Then the narration explains to us about how the butler went to extinguish all the lights in the house after everybody had gone to bed. Yes, it's important to stop and smell the roses. However, this is stopping to smell every single individual flower. This is completely ridiculous writing. Editors? I don't even know them. In the middle of the night, Greg is awoken from an odd dream by thunder overhead. He hears a shutter knocking loose against the side of the house and watches with horror as a hand reaches out to try and open the window from the inside. It's Jack. And you know what? I don't freaking care. This guy's a perv. He's been stalking these boys since the train station and will not stop talking to them when they're alone in the woods. Mercifully, Greg screams out in terror, which brings in all of the adults. However, if you guessed they don't think he's serious and simply had a nightmare, you'd be correct. But Prudence still instructs Burke to go upstairs, which is where Jack had seemingly been trying to go. At this time, Greg's brain finally catches up and he drags Brian upstairs to the nursery where they left the photo album earlier. Once in there, they're joined by Brooke, who's waving a gun around. They open up a window and climb out to the roof where they randomly face down with Jack. Brian beats the creeper off with the weather vane before Brooke shoots him, which causes Jack to slide off the roof. Once back inside, Prudence obviously asks what happened. They explain to her that Jack was out there, but now he's in the garden somewhere. Chapter 11. The next morning, the boys talk about how it is that Jack could have somehow survived not only getting shot, but also falling 3 stories. Or, hear me out, this is seriously asking a lot from all of them. The adults in the situation remove the dead body. Again, I feel like that's putting way too much onto people who've made their opinions on everything really clear. However, with the Jack situation in the previous chapter, at least they all had perfectly reasonable reactions towards that. The bar is on the ground here, but good job. However, immediately jumping off what I was talking about in the previous chapter about just how little that every single character seems to care about any of this, we're going to completely and utterly disregard the fact that a man had tried to break into the house, been shot, and fell off the roof. Forget about all of that because we're going to go see the troll. They go over and present the weather vane to the troll. I'm a bit confused as to how it was that we went from Jack climbing onto the roof to the answer to the riddle was the weather vane, but here we are. As usual with this book, I feel like I missed a couple of chapters, but I'm literally on page 2 of the chapter. I can't afford to get hung up over these little things when it's obvious that the author himself doesn't seem to care all that much. As soon as the weather vane is handed over, the troll casually invites them into his home for cake and cider, as one does. The boys agree under the idea that they might finally get some answers. Inside, the troll introduces himself as Calgrash and says that he does this because it's what his family has done for several generations. The boys consult the board where they discover that there's something new, an underground tunnel. Calgrash asks if they like being underground, and they explain to him that they think that there's an underground kingdom in the mountain. Calgrash says that there is, but that he's not supposed to tell them stuff like that. Finally, the boys ask who this speculant who told Calgrash to stand on the bridge and swing his axe at anybody who came by is. Calgrash explains that the speculant is in charge of the game, which in no way actually explains much of anything. Thank you kindly. They say that they're going to leave now. Calgrash asks that they leave the weather vane outside and then take it back to the house when they go back. That way it can be put back onto the roof and others can use it to cross the bridge in the future. After this, we're subjected to 2 pages of them wandering around and checking the board for directions. I promise you that none of this is actually important. Finally, when they worry that it's about ready to rain, they hear a trumpet sound followed by a responding trumpet in a different direction. The boys barely have any time to get to the ground before a bunch of self-described 18th century hunters, complete with hunting dogs, race by. After the group has passed, the boys get up and race in the direction of the house. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book. Snark's always free and updated every morning. The only edit to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same things on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more book snarks starting at $1 a month. Also, new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn and Phoebe for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too, but not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions about my editing services, including pricing options. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!